hip hop, hip hop.
If you're over the age of 35, stop everything you're doing right now. After a lifetime of eating fatty foods, you may run the risks of a stroke or heart attack due to plaque buildup in your veins and arteries. To learn how you can reduce your risks, visit youthfountainlab.com or call 1-800-853-7856 today. This may be a life-changing call for you or someone you love. Thank you, and we hope to hear from you.
Saving a Mafia kingpin's life, Benny thrives in a criminal environment and eventually brings his son into the fold. The son is ambitious like his father and expands the drug operation to farther-reaching areas of New Jersey. Little do they know, there's a powerful force lurking in the corporate and physical world, watching the growth of the Lasbury regime. Grab the House of Lasbury in the description box right now.
That are there, which are put there and which are implemented in such a way as to make things just a bit harder if you are a person of color, flat out.
Definitely appreciate all those words. So let's move on to the Bill Cosby. You know, we were sitting around today and everybody got the word that the Pennsylvania, I think Supreme Court, it was overturned his conviction. Get into why that happened and the details of that for the people who don't know and what that ultimately means now for Bill Cosby in this case.
Well, so it turns out that the thing that nobody knows is that, and I read up on this as well today. I actually read the opinion today, which enlightened me quite a bit. Well, first of all, the underlying case was it was Benadryls that were given to this woman. I'm just going to say that. Yeah, it was Benadryls. I thought it was some serious drug. It was Benadryl. So nobody knows that.
It said they act like it was roofies.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was Benadryl. So let's just start there. So there was a previous prosecutor who had, so the plaintiff or the victim in the case, she had filed a complaint years after the alleged events. I think the alleged events occurred in 2005, and she had a delayed report, and the prosecutor at the time had weighed the evidence, had taken a look at the statement, had looked at the evidence, and had come to the conclusion that he was not going to prosecute Bill Cosby. I'm going somewhere with this. Mm-hmm. So what happened is that he decided that it would be in the victim's best interest if she pursued a civil action against Bill Cosby, which she did. So in connection with that, Bill Cosby gave approximately 4 depositions. He gave those 4 depositions believing that the prosecutor was not going to prosecute based upon what the prosecutor said. The prosecutor released the press release wherein he said he was declining to prosecute Bill Cosby because of this, and this, and he laid out all the factors. He did not believe that the prosecution was going to be successful. So in reliance upon that, Bill Cosby's lawyers produced him for a deposition, multiple depositions, during the course of which he made some incriminating statements and waived his right to be free from self-incrimination based upon the fact that he didn't think he was going to get prosecuted. Right. The prosecutor who extended that offer and entered into that agreement, he then was no longer prosecutor. 2 prosecutors later, somebody steps in and says, well, I think we're going to pursue this. And they did. And what they did is they used, in connection with their prosecution of Bill Cosby, the court allowed into evidence statements that he made during the course of those depositions, wherein he thought that he was free from, or that he was immune to make those statements. Had he not believed that he was free to make those statements, his attorneys would have never produced him for a deposition. But they did, and he made statements. And then the subsequent prosecutor didn't honor the agreement. And then so what happened is that the Court of Appeals in Pennsylvania, they said, well, this was not, they didn't follow the structure and the rules of Pennsylvania statutes. And because it wasn't formal and because it didn't follow the statute, we don't feel like this was actually an agreement that can be upheld. So they denied all Bill Cosby's motions, denied everything. He had motions to dismiss, motions to suppress the statement. All those motions were denied. All that stuff went into the fact finder, returns with a verdict of guilty, right? So another thing that they did was they let in a bunch of evidence regarding a bunch of other people that, in my opinion, should not have been admitted into evidence. But the Supreme Court, in ruling on this, on deciding that Bill Cosby should be released, what they did is that they basically had two issues before them. They decided, okay, we're going to decide whether or not this agreement should have been upheld, one. And then the other issue was whether or not all this other stuff should have came into evidence. So they said, well, if we decide that this agreement should have been upheld, then we're not going to get into whether or not all this other stuff should have been admitted into evidence. Because if we decide that this agreement should have been upheld, then he should have never been prosecuted in the first place. So what they did was they went through a very tedious analysis of all the lower court opinion and all the evidence, and came to the conclusion that the agreement should have been upheld because the prosecutor had the authority to enter into the agreement, and that Bill Cosby relied upon it detrimentally, and as a result, he suffered a loss, which was eventually a conviction. So the question of whether or not all that other stuff should have came in never even got decided today. In my opinion, it was a dog and pony show based upon all this other stuff that they got into evidence, trying to prove that a pattern or practice, but there are specific rules in the evidence which preclude a prosecutor from trying to bring in a whole bunch of prior bad acts. And in this case, all that stuff, I mean, just stuff that, in my opinion, should not have come in. I couldn't believe it when I read it myself.
Now, does he have any recourse to sue for that?
Yeah, I'm quite sure he will. And the former prosecutor, when he actually exchanged email communications. So this opinion that the Supreme Court released yesterday, it has excerpts from those emails from the former prosecutor to the current prosecutor who prosecuted Bill Cosby, saying that he believed that Bill Cosby would have recourse, civil recourse, if the state continued to pursue the prosecution. And I have a tendency to agree. It's a breach of contract, and he suffered substantial damages. There's attorney fees. He was in prison for approximately 3 years. I think he goes after him, and I think he sues the prosecutor potentially personally. So we'll see.
Now you have a prosecutor and prosecution that put in the evidence, put things in evidence that didn't belong there, testimonies that didn't belong there. Why, in your opinion, did it take so long, 3 years and a bunch of denials and appeals and things like that, for him to be released and for the Supreme Court to finally go, yeah, this was wrong. You got to release this man.
All right. So it's the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And the one thing that I will tell you about the law that I learned fairly early on is that you're dealing with some very, very, very smart folk who are able to reason around things and to analyze things and to phrase things in a manner which supports their opinion. These people are professionals at it. And that's what happened here. They were able to analyze things and to basically, they cherry picked what they felt was going to support their conclusion. I'm really sad to say this, but because I don't know that Bill Cosby deserves the benefit of this doubt, because he's not like you, he's not like me. The dude is rich as hell, but he's still, no matter how you put it, he's still African American, and we're more likely to be prosecuted. It's just flat out what it is. I mean, let's just keep it real. They pulled out all the stops to make sure that they prosecuted Bill Cosby and make sure that he stayed there. And I think that this Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, they did the right thing. Now, how much did it cost for Bill Cosby to get this justice? I have millions and millions of dollars that neither you nor I would have access to.
Right.
Any other regular cat would still be in prison with no hope for getting out.
Yeah.
Now, the civil suit that he had to pay to the victims, is that affected now Would he be able to get that back, or how does that work?
That's a good point, because there was a clause. There usually is a clause in every settlement agreement, which is basically a hush clause that the person is in agreement in consideration for the amount that they receive, that they're not going to disparage the other party or say anything else. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I would probably sue them too for violation and try to get back. It was like $3.38 million. He may not do that because, just for the fact of there's just still enough people out there that think that he's just guilty, that he just doesn't want to deal with that anymore with that particular victim. But I mean, as far as the state is concerned and the prosecutor, he may go after them.
Now you have a situation where no circumstantial evidence was brought into this trial to put him DNA wise to these alleged crimes. You got alleged crimes that happened over 3 decades ago. And now he's obviously out of prison, but is the damage already done to his reputation? Because although he has a lot of support, a ton of support, in particular in our community, there's still a lot of people also in our community and beyond that think this man did it, that he's a monster, and he always will be a monster. So was damage, is it too little too late for his reputation? And if so, did whoever decided to put him in this situation win, in your opinion?
Well, let me say this. I don't know if there's any winners or losers here. Everyone's invested here and everyone is lost.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't imagine that there's any winners here. But no, as far as his reputation, if I may say, it's a wrap. Yeah. It's a wrap for his name. There's too many people. I spoke to someone today indicating that I was going to speak on this particular issue, someone that I trust, someone whom I love, someone who's very close to me, who was just infuriated when they found out that he was released. This is an African-American woman, and she was convinced that he was guilty. Now, does she know that this was a Benadryl pill, about 3 half pills of Benadryl? Nope. The person I spoke to takes Benadryl every day or every night to go to sleep. And she go to believe that he actually drugged this woman and had sex with her, and once she finds out that it was Benadryl, I don't know. Once she finds out all the rest of this information, she may change her opinion. But the point of the matter is that there's some people, I don't care what you tell them. They're just going to believe what they're going to believe. I mean, if Trump's presidency hasn't proven anything, it's going to prove that. I mean, if you don't know that Trump was a liar, and he was detrimental to our society, and if after they raid the Capitol, you still support him, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, there's just some people who are just going to believe what they're going to believe. So when it comes to Bill Cosby, who is far less loved than Donald Trump in this country at this particular point, he's not going to gain back a lot of favor at all. No.
I want to get your opinion on something that Mark Lamont Hill said. Are you familiar with Mark Lamont Hill by any chance?
I'm not sure that I am. No.
All right. Well, he's a young brother who has a show called Black News Now. He's like a political analyst. He said this. He said, Bill Cosby is not innocent. He has not been exonerated. His release means that Cosby, a sexual predator, was incarcerated within a criminal legal system that has little regard for his own rules and procedures as Cosby does for his victims. What's your opinion on that statement?
Yeah, I don't know if the young brother has read the opinion and what actually occurred to Mr. Cosby, and the fact that he was actually duped, like so many young African-American males, where he gave a statement that was then in turn used against him in a court of law. I really don't know. And I just want to make this very clear. It's not necessarily about whether this was true. Mm-hmm. It's about justice. Yeah. You see, I defend people that may be guilty every day. That might be the case. But what I expect for the United States, and I expect for the Constitution to be upheld. I expect for equal justice. I expect justice. I expect fairness. And that's not what he got here. He did not receive fairness, and that is the reason for that the conviction was overturned. But again, how many people are sitting in the Department of Corrections right now, and given any state, that are sitting there unfairly on some crap they probably didn't do? They took pleas or they were convicted. There's people that get released every day due to the Innocence Project who were convicted. So I'm not going to sit here and bellyache because, oh, Bill Cosby may have gotten out. For one person that gets out based upon the fact that we actually held the prosecutor to a standard, one person with a bunch of money gets out. You want to start bellyaching about that one person? What about the hundreds and thousands of people that are in prison, who died in prison, who were killed in prison, who did not have the prosecutor held to their word, held to fairness? That's what I want to look at.
Hip hop, hip hop, hip hop, hip
Bars is back.
hip hop,
Sam
hip
Ant.
hop,
Oh God.
hop,
What's
hip
up with you?
hop.
I done watched them niggas do interview after interview. They not culture vultures, the culture.